Heaven will destroy the CCP. From the streets of Seoul to a global consensus, the anti-China wave is spreading worldwide, and people are awakening to the CCP. The illusions of Xi Jinping's supporters have collapsed. He is steering them toward ruin. Those who strive to defend the party and its leader will face destruction alongside them. The CCP exports not prosperity, but crisis and turmoil. Overnight, the Nepalese government was overthrown, and pro-China regimes are collapsing one after another. China's top cities collapse, young people flee, the largest auto city turns into a ghost town. Counterfeits in every corner of life. From food to housing, China drowns in fakes. Is there any hope left? Welcome to Secret in China, where facts matter, and every story is told with integrity. Heaven will destroy the CCP. From the streets of Seoul to a global consensus, the anti-China wave is spreading worldwide, and people are awakening to the CCP. Recently, at protest sites in Seoul, South Korea, alongside the South Korean and US flags, large banners emblazoned with the phrase, "Heaven will destroy the CCP," have been particularly eye-catching. These 4 words are not only a rallying cry for the South Korean people, but also reflect the shared sentiment of many worldwide who have been persecuted by the Chinese Communist Party. On September 7th, the South Korean government announced that from September 29th to June 30 of the following year, it would implement a visa-free entry policy for Chinese group tourists. This decision immediately sparked widespread outrage in South Korean society, as numerous past incidents have shown that the CCP uses tourist groups to infiltrate spies, manipulate public opinion, and even interfere in elections. South Koreans are concerned that this policy will further threaten national sovereignty and social order. In subsequent protests, the public strongly voiced their opposition, accusing the current government's pro-China stance of endangering South Korea's security. More radical incidents also occurred. A Chinese woman was detained by police after splashing milk tea on protesters in the street, provoking them. Many suspect she might be a little pink, manipulated by the CCP to act as an overseas enforcer for the regime. After a video of the incident went viral on social media, it further heightened South Korean society's vigilance regarding the China threat. Since late last year, Myeongdong in Seoul, home to the Chinese embassy, has become a hotspot for protests. Initially focused on opposing CCP infiltration, the protests have now expanded to target the visa-free policy and the government's pro-China tendencies, growing increasingly intense. At the protest sites, there are not only banners denouncing the CCP, but also scenes of people trampling on the Chinese flag and images of pro-China politicians. The public refers to these politicians as the Yulsa 3 traitors, accusing them of betraying national interests and pandering to the CCP. The protesters' words were resolute and powerful. "We firmly oppose visa-free entry for Chinese people." Oppose. This is not merely a struggle against the visa policy, but a comprehensive counterattack by South Korean society against the CCP's long-term infiltration and manipulation. The anger of the South Korean people is not baseless. In recent years, the CCP's transnational suppression of dissidents has been widely criticized internationally. South Korean authorities discovered 4 undeclared Chinese police stations operating within the country, specifically used to intimidate dissidents in South Korea and pressure them to return to China for trial. Such blatant violations of sovereignty starkly demonstrate the CCP's lawlessness. Even more alarming, South Korea's intelligence agency revealed that during the 2022 presidential election, the CCP interfered in South Korean elections through online manipulation and disinformation, even using economic leverage to influence politicians. This is no longer merely diplomatic influence, but a blatant violation of democratic systems. South Korea is not an isolated case. Whether in the United States, Europe, or Southeast Asia, resistance to the CCP is growing stronger. From human rights abuses in Xinjiang, the erosion of freedoms in Hong Kong, and military threats in the Taiwan Strait, to the transnational suppression of overseas Chinese communities, the true nature of the CCP has become clear to the world. The "Heaven will destroy the CCP" banners raised on the streets of Seoul are not just the outcry of South Koreans, but a microcosm of a global awakening. The CCP has become a rat crossing the street, despised by all. And no matter how it tries to disguise itself, it cannot escape its inevitable fate of being eliminated. Heaven will destroy the CCP is no longer just a prophecy of religious groups, but is gradually becoming a global consensus. The struggle of the South Korean people serves as a reminder to the world. Only by thoroughly exposing the CCP's lies, resisting its infiltration and manipulation, and safeguarding democracy and freedom can humanity usher in a future without the CCP. This international wave of resistance against tyranny will ultimately bring the CCP to the judgment seat of history. The illusions of Xi Jinping's supporters have collapsed. He is steering them toward ruin. Those who strive to defend the party and its leader will face destruction alongside them. In the past few days, the world has witnessed a storm without tanks, bombs, or foreign military intervention. It has completely shattered the illusion of the Chinese Communist Party's control over neighboring countries, delivering a swift death to the Xi Jinping model on the global stage for the first time. Where did this storm originate? Right in China's backyard, Nepal. The CCP tried to export its Great Firewall, but instead, it ignited the fury of an entire nation. The Nepalese people, without any revolutionary theories, have played out a real-life script of house-to-house reckoning in recent days. The finance minister was stripped naked on the streets and forced into icy river waters. Former Prime Minister Duba and his wife were attacked and seriously injured at home. Former Prime Minister Koirala's residence was set ablaze, with his wife succumbing to her injuries. The most humiliating scene belonged to Ali. On the evening of September 9th, the military used a helicopter basket to airlift Ali, his wife, and 7 cabinet members from the rooftop of the Prime Minister's residence. A BBC commentator called it a visual humiliation of authoritarianism. In the simplest terms, the Nepalese people used the most primal method to declare, "We don't want to become the next Hong Kong or another North Korea." They rejected the living prison in exchange for digital sovereignty and used flames to dismantle the CCP imported version of the Great Firewall. In just 3 days, the people toppled Ali from power. The parliament, presidential palace, and prime minister's residence were engulfed in flames. The finance minister was dragged into the river by crowds, forced to kneel and beg for mercy. A former prime minister's home was set on fire, and Ali himself escaped via a military helicopter basket, while his wife perished in the blaze. What was the spark? On August 28, the Nepalese government abruptly ordered that all foreign social media platforms complete local registration and submit to regulatory oversight within 7 days. Who instructed them to do this? The answer is Beijing. Oli's handshake with Xi Jinping was dubbed by netizens as the death grip. A task force from the CCP's Cyberspace Administration went to Kathmandu, with Huawei and ZTE providing equipment, and Beijing think tanks offering public opinion control plans. The so-called Digital Silk Road had reached its final step, controlling the internet. On September 4th, the order took effect, and 26 platforms were instantly blocked. Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, WhatsApp, Reddit, LinkedIn, all vanished. The method of censorship was strikingly similar to China's Great Firewall, but the Nepalese people immediately realized they had lost not just internet access, but their ability to express opinions and engage with the world. The first to stand up were university students, white-collar workers, and Gen Z. They didn't shout for jobs or complain about high food prices. Instead, they declared, "We are not Chinese. Nepal is not Beijing's testing ground. Get out of our internet." The protests spread like wildfire, from social media to the streets, from cities to the mountains, from slogans to flames. Those who try to protect the party and Xi will perish with them. In just 48 hours, the anti-censorship movement evolved into a full-scale street revolution against the CCP model. On September 8th, the government declared a curfew and authorized police and military to open fire, resulting in over 20 deaths and hundreds injured. But instead of intimidating the people, this fueled even fiercer resistance. The parliament building and government institutions were set ablaze, and the finance minister, foreign minister, and Oli were forced into a human retreat. The CCP's Politburo held an all-night secret meeting, not to discuss how to stabilize the situation, but to debate who could escape. The flames in Nepal not only burned down a puppet regime, but also ignited fear among the CCP's top leaders. For the first time, they realized if they don't remove Xi Jinping, they themselves could face the same fate as Nepalese officials, hunted down one by the people. As the saying goes, the days until Xi Jinping's downfall can now be counted on one hand, because those who try to protect the party and Xi will perish with them. The CCP exports not prosperity, but crisis and turmoil. Overnight, the Nepalese government was overthrown, and pro-China regimes are collapsing one after another. The September 3rd military parade was meant to be a stage for the Chinese Communist Party to project the image of a rising great power. However, this meticulously orchestrated political spectacle has led to a string of misfortunes for leaders who appeared alongside Xi Jinping. Days earlier, Xi Jinping's face had mysteriously darkened, a condition still visible during the September 3rd parade. Many offered varied interpretations, but it was seen as a sign of bad fortune. This ill omen quickly spread to Nepal's prime minister, who, upon returning home, was forced to resign and flee via helicopter in a frantic escape. Ironically, just days before the unrest, Ali had prominently attended the September 3rd parade in Beijing, shaking hands and posing for photos with Xi Jinping. China proclaimed that China and Nepal stand together through thick and thin, jointly writing a historic chapter of good neighborly friendship. No wonder the international community mocked the parade photo as a graduation picture. The leaders smiled brightly, but upon returning home, they faced their own final exams, each encountering catastrophic challenges. Oli's downfall is not an isolated case, but the latest chapter in the plight of pro-China regimes. In recent years, governments that aligned too closely with or relied heavily on Beijing have almost invariably descended into turmoil and crisis. A saying has even begun to circulate internationally. These regimes are either facing protests or teetering on the brink of collapse. Sri Lanka. In 2022, the Pearl of the Indian Ocean was rocked by massive protests due to a severe debt crisis and energy shortages, with public anger targeting the presidential palace. Ultimately, President Rajapaksa was forced to flee in disgrace, becoming a laughingstock in South Asian politics. Behind this crisis was the heavy debt burden from China's Belt and Road Initiative, particularly the Hambantota port's debt for lease deal, which branded Sri Lanka a victim of a debt trap. Bangladesh. In 2023, a nationwide student movement spread like wildfire, challenging the government's legitimacy and governance. A longtime economic partner of Beijing, Bangladesh's over-reliance on Chinese investments and loans made it increasingly vulnerable to economic and social tensions. The students' anger reflected a deep distrust among the younger generation toward the government's pro-China policies and corrupt system. Indonesia. President Joko Widodo was once Beijing's ally in Southeast Asia, participating in the Belt and Road Initiative and attending major events in Beijing, including military parades. Yet recently, Indonesia has also seen large-scale protests targeting government policy failures and corruption. This further proves that the closer a regime aligns with the CCP, the greater the pressure it faces. Serbia. In Europe, President Vučić is one of the most pro-China leaders, lauded by Beijing as a gateway for the Belt and Road into Europe. However, at the end of 2023, Serbia erupted in massive protests over alleged election fraud, with tens of thousands taking to the streets, demanding his resignation. This plunged Vučić's regime into an unprecedented crisis. This series of political coincidences has been dubbed by international observers as a pattern. Regimes that stand too close to Xi Jinping or the CCP not only fail to gain true protection, but often become focal points of instability. In other words, their ties with the CCP bring no political glory but instead seem to curse them with bad fortune, pushing them toward the abyss of public resentment. Xi Jinping's embarrassment and isolation. For Beijing, Ali's collapse is undoubtedly a heavy blow. As the leader of Nepal's Communist Party, he prided himself on following Beijing's lead. Now, with his regime's collapse, China's influence south of the Himalayas has taken a hit, and the CCP's carefully cultivated Belt and Road Initiative has become a subject of ridicule. International commentary has jokingly described Xi Jinping as dark-faced and plagued by misfortune, with leaders photographed alongside him seemingly cursed. But setting aside superstition, the political logic is straightforward. Regimes heavily dependent on Beijing often suffer from structural crises rooted in corruption, debt, and accumulated public discontent. When sudden events strike, these regimes are the first to collapse, dragging Beijing into an embarrassing predicament. Your fate is determined by the company you keep. The September 3rd parade photo is now seen as an ominous snapshot. This may be the reality Xi Jinping is most reluctant to admit, but cannot escape. What the CCP exports is not prosperity, but crisis and turmoil. China's top cities collapse, young people flee, the largest auto city turns into a ghost town. Today, I received some shocking news. The closure rate of traditional stores in Guangzhou has reportedly reached 80%. What does that mean? Out of 10 stores, as many as 8 are on life support. Many have already started downsizing. Shop owners sit in their stores all day waiting for footsteps that never come. And when someone finally steps in and finds something they like, they turn away to check prices online or with a competitor. This has pushed physical retailers into endless price wars, draining them completely. The overall atmosphere is bleak. Many residents say spending has dropped to its lowest point in years. Reports show that air tickets from Guangzhou to some cities cost only about 100 yuan, yet there are still no buyers. High-speed trains run half empty. Even in the busiest downtown areas, you can find a meal set with 1 meat dish and 2 vegetables for just 13 yuan. Guangzhou, once a bustling commercial hub, is now facing an unprecedented decline. Many stores have shut down, shopping malls stand empty, and the streets have fallen eerily quiet. The hustle and bustle of traffic and lively crowds have vanished, leaving behind a chilling silence. Everywhere, closed signs appear in rows. Changsha Pedestrian Street, once so packed it was hard to move, has now become a hollow tourist spot. Locals shake their heads while visitors snap a few photos and leave. Statistics show that more than 50% of shops here are vacant. GT Land Plaza, located in the heart of the new Juo town and sitting right above a busy subway line, once considered a prime advantage, is now cold and deserted. This shopping mall, once vibrant, has turned into a ghost mall, reflecting the broader economic decline of the city. Walking down corridors filled with shuttered stores, it is hard to believe this was once a thriving commercial hub. With factories and shops shutting down, finding work in Guangzhou has become increasingly difficult. One woman shared that she constantly wonders whether she should stay in Guangzhou or return to her hometown. She explained that jobs are not entirely unavailable, but most salaries are now only 4,000 yuan, the same as in her village. Positions offering 7,000, 8,000 yuan are extremely rare. With living costs in the city, rent alone consumes all her income, piling heavy pressure on her shoulders. At 33, unmarried and childless, many companies fear she might get married and quit, so they refuse to hire her. The hardship does not stop with young workers. A third-year student at Guangzhou College of Commerce, required to complete a 1-year internship, has been searching for nearly a month without success. The question arises, is there really still a chance to make it in a big city? In reality, many with a bachelor's degree find it harder than those with just a diploma. At labor markets, as early as 6 a.m., older workers in their 50s crowd in, hoping to grab a day's work for just a few dozen yuan. By 7:30, trucks arrive with job offers. A few lucky ones get picked while the rest remain, disappointed and waiting. On August 31st, 2025, one woman reported being laid off from a company with 2,700 employees. She once believed that working for a large firm with 60 billion won in annual revenue would mean stability. But after just 10 months, she found herself out of a job. Her plan to settle long-term collapsed overnight. Now, she is preparing to sell her e-bike to cover expenses and return home to look for new opportunities. She admitted, the adult world is far harsher than she ever imagined. Surviving in Guangzhou has become a monumental challenge for everyone. The reality shows that many companies are cutting salaries or laying off staff. Countless small firms have gone bankrupt, with only a few barely holding on. Office workers' expenses far exceed their income, and many rely on credit cards or online loans. On payday, the number in hand makes them want to cry. Officials continue to call for stimulating consumption, But the real problem isn't willingness, it's empty pockets. For young people, not being in debt is already considered lucky. In recent days, the subway has been packed even at midday on weekdays, full of young people hustling for interviews. Many have been unemployed for months. Resumes vanish into the void, and responses only come from small firms. Some have turned to street vending to survive, but that too is tough. Many who once worked in education or even tried to start businesses have now become small traders. Behind the gleaming skyscrapers and flashy malls lie countless struggles. In an underpass in central Guangzhou, far from being a tourist attraction, delivery riders, day laborers, and the unemployed gather. They shelter there to save on rent and utilities, scraping by on what little they can. Yet, even putting food on the table each day has become a challenge. This scene reflects a harsh reality. Guangzhou, once hailed as a super first-tier city, is now caught in a vicious cycle of decline, with unemployment, debt, and even homelessness looming large. This is no longer just the story of a few individuals. It is the grim portrait of a city once celebrated as a symbol of China's prosperity. Counterfeits in every corner of life. From food to housing, China drowns in fakes. Is there any hope left? If China is known worldwide for one particular skill, it is counterfeiting. From high-end luxury items to the most basic daily necessities, counterfeit goods are everywhere, and the problem is only growing. In recent years, the spread of fakes has become so severe that it now permeates nearly every aspect of daily life. Clothing, food, housing, transportation, and even medicine. Profit-driven merchants cut corners, use dangerous substitutes, and place consumers at risk. What may look like isolated scandals is in fact evidence of a systemic collapse of trust. Nowhere is this clearer than in construction and home design. A customer who paid more than 3,000 yuan for what was advertised as a solid wood door discovered it was nothing more than hollow paperboard, so flimsy it posed a serious fire hazard. Ordinary wood is sometimes soaked in soy sauce to mimic the color of expensive timber, fooling buyers until the material fails under stress. Red bricks, the foundation of any building, are often mixed with lime and inferior materials, creating tofu dreg bricks that disintegrate under the lightest pressure. Exterior walls may be padded with foam to give the appearance of strength, only to collapse with a single kick. Even in newly built apartments, residents routinely find cracked staircases, peeling walls, and hollow interiors. Disasters waiting to happen. Food counterfeiting, however, remains the most chilling. Fake pork belly stitched together with soybean protein looks convincing, but has none of the smell of genuine meat when cooked. Counterfeit ribs are often chicken molded around fake bones, and pork ears can be manufactured from plastic and motor oil. Seafood vendors pad weights with thick plastic bags, charging consumers for the packaging rather than the food. And then there are the scandals that have scarred public memory. The 2008 melamine milk powder disaster that left thousands of infants with kidney stones, some fatally. Gutter oil recycled from sewers and resold as cooking oil laced with carcinogens. Pork contaminated with clenbuterol that caused tremors and heart palpitations. And Sudan red dye found in chili powder that significantly raised cancer risks. Traditional medicine and health products are not spared. Reports have exposed safflower petals made from dyed toilet paper, deer antlers filled with gravel and wood dust, seahorses bulked up with foreign substances, and ginseng powders mixed with waste drug residue. Far darker are allegations that some hospitals participate in forced organ harvesting for profit. The unexplained disappearances of individuals have fueled long-standing suspicions of an illegal organ trade operating under the surface. At the street level, a culture of deception has taken hold. Viral videos show vendors chemically treating sunflower seeds, mixing excess salt into tofu, or patting seaweed with fillers to increase volume. Fake fire extinguishers stuffed with trash are rendered useless in emergencies. In jewelry markets, cheap jade bangles bleached with acid and injected with resin are sold at steep prices, leaving buyers not only cheated but potentially harmed by toxins. Many analysts see in this culture of mutual harm, where people deceive others even for small gains, the deeper imprint of the Chinese Communist Party's governance, which has eroded trust and instilled a survival mentality summed up by the phrase fake, evil, struggle. Estimates put the counterfeit economy in China at several trillion yuan, with fake goods penetrating more than 30% of the consumer market. According to the Consumer Rights Protection Association, complaints about counterfeits jumped 15% in 2024 from the year before, hitting industries as diverse as food, construction, and pharmaceuticals. The roots of the problem, critics argue, run deeper than just lax regulation. Works such as The Ultimate Goal of Communism and 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party contend that the counterfeit epidemic stems directly from the CCP's destruction of traditional values. During the Cultural Revolution, the party promoted atheism, tearing away the guiding principles of benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and integrity. Without belief in moral retribution or higher principles, society descended into a culture where deception became normalized and boundaries vanished. Experts warn that unless this cultural environment changes, China will remain locked in a cycle of counterfeit goods, organ trafficking, and social breakdown. Restoring moral foundations and a belief that good is rewarded and evil punished may be the only path to rebuild trust and bring stability back to Chinese society. Thank you for watching Secret in China. If you value thoughtful, independent journalism, we invite you to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and join the conversation. Until next time, stay informed and take care.